Good morning and good afternoon to those watching ACEI's 2018 Innovation Exchange online event. My name is Rebecca Leege and I work for World Vision. We're a global relief, development, and advocacy organization dedicated to working with children, families, and communities to overcome poverty and injustice. 7 years ago, World Vision began an innovation journey. We were seeking new approaches, partners, and uses of technology to support the children we serve to learn to read. Because we know that without reading, children will not reach their fullest potential. With a culture committed to partnership and innovation, World Vision, together with the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the Australian government's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, co-founded and co-funded All Children Reading, a Grand Challenge for Development. This grand challenge is often referred solely to as All Children Reading and is one of 10 grand challenges developed by USAID, specifically to mobilize governments, companies, foundations, and other around important issues. Through these programs, USAID and the public and private partners bring in new voices to solve developmental problems. These new solutions, they're tested with new ideas, and then we hope that they will work at scale. So what does All Children Reading do? Well, we seek to source, to test, and disseminate technology-based innovations to advance early grade reading outcomes in developing countries so that children can learn to read. In 2017, UNESCO Institute for Statistics revealed that more than 90% of primary-age children in low-income countries and 75% of children in low-middle-income countries are not expected to read or do math at the end of primary. That's 330 million children. Without a doubt, this is a global crisis and a grand challenge, and an urgent one that we must all work to address. So over the past 7 years, we've done it through global competitions to source technology-based solutions that address gaps in the education ecosystem in developing contexts, but also in fragile states and conflict and crisis settings. We've conducted robust research around these innovations, and then we seek to disseminate solutions that work. So the funding model of grand challenges can vary, but at the center of it is that we are trying to explore new ways of doing business. And we also hope that a competition model, that it can create space, one, for the recognition of, and two, for supporting a variety of actors in the education ecosystem, thereby achieving greater impact, and at the same time giving us new tools and resources and methods that we can replicate elsewhere. So we've awarded, over this period of time, over 75 plus innovators, and we've complemented them with extensive research. Our global competitions, it's important to note that we have focused on 3 areas that address gaps in the ecosystem in which children learn to read. First was mother tongue instruction and reading materials. Well, simply stated, we know from research that children learn best to read in a language they're first taught in a language that they first learn to express themselves in, to speak and to understand at home or in the playground. Secondly, we don't learn to read typically without families and community members' engagement in helping us with our motivation, our practice, and support in order to learn to read. And third, the inclusion of children with disabilities, knowing that if we don't, we will not be reaching the world's most vulnerable and ensuring an inclusive society. Thus, our innovations have focused on these 3 areas: appropriate materials, empowering families and communities, and including children with disabilities. But you know what? It's important to note that they're all interrelated, right? So addressing them holistically together, we're assuring children have greater reading gains. As I've mentioned over the last 3 years, we have coupled our innovation with rigorous research. As a result, we've now published 15 research studies on the use of education technology, or EdTech, in developing countries, and they're available on our website. These studies were designed to support not only researchers, some of you who are listening, but also implementers seeking to improve their approaches. And our hope is that our research also helps funders and policymakers better understand which innovation, at which stage of the early grade reading skills spectrum, from pre-reading to foundational skills to comprehension, are ready for replication or expansion. To test our innovations, we've worked closely with several external research firms over the last 3 years, including School to School, based out of California, University of Western Australia in Perth, Australia, Integrated International in Amman, Jordan, and Mentente in Cape Town, South Africa. Reports from these research, as I mentioned before, can be found on the allchildrenreading.org website. So let me highlight for you in this talk a few of our findings that's pertinent to low resource contexts, especially in developing countries. So All Children Reading, one of our first findings was that technology-based literacy projects have the potential to effectively disseminate new or existing learning materials to underserved populations in their mother tongue. The support from this finding can be found amongst many of our funded innovations. However, let me cite one example from a project implemented in Zambia by Creative Associates. The project noted that even in the most rural villages in eastern Zambia, families had access to basic mobile phones, and they decided to leverage this technology. In summary, the project delivered text messages to parents and caretaker phones with stories and comprehension questions for their children in their mother tongue. Parents and caretakers attended monthly meetings. They learned how to encourage their child in the reading process, and then were also supported by some home visits by community mobilizers. Another interesting innovative aspect was that the stories were crowdsourced from the local communities. This allowed the rich oral history to be captured and adapted into story format. Utilizing the early grade reading assessment, EGRA, developed by Resources Triangle Institute International, RTI, the research noted a 0.2 effect size in increased foundational reading skills and a 0.3 in learning comprehension of students. While we often think that effect size 0.5 is considered small, however, the World Bank report, How Effective Are Early Grade Reading Interventions? A Review of Evidence, which was published earlier this year in 2018, stated that after a review of multiple impact evaluations of early grade reading programs in Africa and Asia, they should be considered, anything 0.25 effect size should be considered substantial. Well, this newly proposed recommendation of understanding effect size further supports the interesting gains attributed to this project. Again, the full impact evaluation report conducted by the University of Chicago's NORC can be found on our website. A second finding is that technology-based literacy programs can benefit individual learning experiences for students. We all know, regardless of our age, we all love to learn if it is fun. That is why All Children Reading invested in digital gaming for literacy, which also supports our second focus area of family and community engagement. In collaboration with the Norwegian government, along with mobile operator Orange and the Interagency Network for Education in Emergencies, 2 digital literacy games were awarded out of 78 submissions in our global competition. The winning games are On Tour in the Letters and Feed the Monster. They're both available on Google Play and the App Store. And these games were created to build foundational literacy skills in Arabic and improve the psychosocial well-being of children. Conflict and crisis settings, they pose unique challenges, but adapting to the context resulted in the development of providing learning opportunities directly to the child in their home setting. So our impact evaluation results, conducted on both of these games, revealed weak but very promising evidence that smartphone learning games can build basic Arabic literacy and improve the psychosocial well-being of Syrian refugee children. And they did so with a relatively small amount of dosage. For On Tour in the Letters, children were allowed to play for 27 hours, and on Feed the Monster, children played 22 hours. A 0.22 effect size was noted on syllable reading, a 0.2 on invented word, and a 0.26 on oral reading fluency, All three were statistically significant at a 95% confidence level. These free games, which also work offline, have been downloaded or shared over 80,000 times, allowing out-of-school children the opportunity to have fun while learning critical foundational literacy skills. In addition, because they are created under an open source code, these games have been reversioned into 20+ languages and with more anticipated. Well, we decided that in our learning experience that we should complement these digital games, the technical and impact evaluations, with some guiding principles. All Children Reading and the Digital Learning for Development initiatives co-published a guide to developing digital games for early grade reading in developing countries, which was co-authored by Kenneth Lim and John Cummings. So we hope that this guide will support game developers, educators, in creating much better and much more integrated digital games for impact in developing countries. Please feel free to download a copy and take these principles, guiding principles, into your development work as you consider digital gaming. Oh, many innovators, we seek to try something new, but it's not just as important, but it is just as important to us that we also think about the new application or the context of something that should be used. This is what our third finding relates to: enhancing early grade reading outcomes for children with disabilities, which was our third focus area. So our finding was that developers and implementers, innovators, should assess whether existing technology, particularly assistive technologies, could adequately address the literacy challenges in a specific context before creating something new. Let me set the stage here for how important it is to draw our attention to the most vulnerable, children with disabilities. It's estimated that over 93 million children live with disabilities globally. If we take that estimate, that means 1 in 20 children age 14 or younger have a disability. And of those children who reside in countries with high poverty levels, 90 to 98% do not attend school in any form. And fewer girls than boys are able to attend school. There are many reasons for this. The education systems in high poverty, low resource settings do not accommodate for these children's needs. A lack of suitable transportation, infrastructure, inadequate teacher training, insufficient learning support, and a dearth of high quality learning resources prevent children with disabilities from attending or fully participating in a school program. These statistics align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which explicitly includes disability in persons 11 times. And in Sustainable Development Goal, as we know, which reads, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, explicitly profiles children with disabilities. So we have piloted several innovative approaches in low resource and conflict and crisis settings around the globe to support children who are deaf and hard of hearing and blind or low vision. Because there's relatively little research that's been conducted on the use of technology-based approaches with children with disabilities, I'd like to share with you some of our research findings on 2 projects. One that's focused on the blind and low vision, and the other one on deaf and hard of hearing. So I'll begin with the research finding from Resources for the Blind, a local non-governmental organization based in the Philippines who works with children who have low vision or are blind. Resources for the Blind's project was entitled Reading Beyond Sight, and boy, did it achieve remarkable results. Per our finding, they innovated not in developing a new technology, but by the application of existing assistive technologies in a new context with students and teachers. And they complemented this with teacher training and mentoring, as well as parent and community engagement, and the results were astounding. Within a 1-year period, statistically significant gains were seen in the intervention group, most notably Filipino oral reading fluency subtask, revealed that students increased their reading rate by 97.1 words in 3 minutes, in contrast to their peers of only 50.7 words in 3 minutes. These gains would not have been possible without appropriate matching of the technology with the user. Resources for the Blind did a thorough analysis of assistive technologies, effectively matching what their students needed with the best technologies they could afford. For example, teachers now had appropriate printers in which they could produce reading materials in large print and Braille for their students on a daily basis. They didn't need to take a month or a quarter to produce materials any longer. They could do it on a daily basis, allowing their students to take home reading, to practice at home with books. Students could access reading and other materials using Zoom text, Braille display on computers, and students with low vision could use closed caption TV while working with other printed materials. In short, it's important to know when to utilize existing technologies versus creating a new hardware or a new software. My second example relates to working with children who are deaf or hard of hearing. And our key finding actually lay in the research process alone. All Children Reading awarded a woman-owned company, Institute for Disability Research and Training, funding to use an existing technology to support educators to easily create and publish Moroccan Sign Language education materials. Well, in our analysis of assessment tools available for deaf children, it became apparent that no tool had been developed to assess the reading skills of children who are deaf and hard of hearing in developing countries. So thus, All Children Reading witnessed innovation in the process of utilizing existing tools. From this process emerged the need to create the first known early grade reading sign language assessment for children who are deaf and hard of hearing in a developing country. This early grade reading sign language assessment tool, it not only supports the teacher and the learner, but it supports all of us in the system. For the first time, countries can assess, know, and report against the reading status of children who are deaf. The process outlining the development of the assessment tool, the baseline results are available on our website. The project concludes this year in 2018, and we anticipate the end-line results to be available at the end of this calendar year. In conclusion, I want to note a few things that All Children Reading remains committed to. One, we remain committed to seeking new sustainable solutions that will improve children's reading. We remain committed to fostering partnerships. Our fundamental belief is that engaging the world in the quest for solutions is critical to instigating breakthrough progress. And that we remain committed to responding with agility. Seeking innovation solutions that respond to a specific context, environment, and the needs of children is so critical to learning how to read. And with the tremendous number of children around the world still unable to read, 330 million, the situation is critical. So we must continue to seek new approaches to addressing this global challenge. Many of you are actively involved in helping children reach their fullest potential and supporting the reading process. You're listening today. And so we're grateful to be working alongside you in your endeavors. This grand challenge and these children deserve our unwavering attention, our greatest efforts, and our brightest ideas. I hope you'll consider partnering with All Children Reading as we seek to collaborate for greater impact, that you'll visit our website and use these research reports to inform your own programs and to share them more broadly. And may this innovation exchange event enrich our respective approaches to ensuring a quality experience for all children. Thank you very much.